Good morning, everybody. It is sometime in the afternoon, probably around 12ish, a little bit after. It is Friday or Friday, July 23rd. Um, I have not put on a video for 2 days because I forgot. Um, Wednesday morning, I woke up. Um, I think woke up pretty fairly decently on Wednesday. It was one of those days where it was just kind of like I'm half awake, half asleep. I can tell that Jarian was fully awake. Um, she kind of gently woke me up minutes before my alarm went off because, well, not 100% sure why. I am. I've got a good idea that it's just out of love and caring, and I don't want to say it was because of her own needs or wants. Because all we did after my alarm went off, which was a minute or two afterwards, was just lay in bed, holding on to each other, enjoying each other's presence and company without any intentions or plans. It's just like, hey, today's going to be another rest day because we said we were going to rest today. So, what the hey? Um, it was nice to be woken up gently instead of without an alarm going off on me. Wednesday, I ended up doing a lot of running around because I had two grocery pickups, a CVS pharmaceutical pickup, and I picked up a pint of white rice from one of our local fast food delivery. Well, we could have had it delivered, but it was cheaper for me to just go pick it up. Um, Chinese restaurants, so we can have. What do we have Wednesday? Oh yes, bourbon chicken. Bourbon chicken that we froze months ago because that was the last time we went to Springfield, to the mall, to Bourbon Street in the mall, um, or Big Easy. I can't remember what the restaurant was called. Um, so we ended up doing that, and then yesterday was one of those days of rest, even though the brain was like, no, you gotta get started on this, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, blah blah blah, and my body went no, new. So I was kind of like one of those sitting there, not wanting to do anything yet, brain going bonkers. And it just something about yesterday just did not sit right. The whole day just seemed to be one of those waiting for the last shoe to drop or waiting for a pin drop or just it literally felt like I was waiting for something negative to happen, and I was on edge, and I was trying to keep myself from being on edge. And Jerry must have sensed it too because she was on edge, and there was a couple little things that happened that she got snappy about, and I just kind of went, "Yep, okay, that must have been it," because I'm trying to be chillax and keep to myself and not start anything. Not that she's trying to start anything, but she just kind of got a little um, because of, well, as she put it, Murphy's Law. So that happened. And then we went to bed. We were both a little, well, she's been having minor depressionary issues from my point of view because just the way she has been acting, not acting needy, but acting like, well, the first year after her brother passed on Tuesday, that was his birthday. Um, Lisa leaving to go to Georgia Tuesday morning. Nobody's fault. No, nobody. I'm not trying to point fingers and saying, well, the reason why Jerry is the way she is because these people left her. No, I can understand her. I feel for her because you know you get this feeling of people are leaving you for, whether it's because they have to or because of nature decided that it was their time. It makes you think. It really does. So, I mean, I've been there. I've been through it. So it makes you think about all the, oh man, this person's gonna die eventually, or that person's gonna die eventually, or I'm gonna lose this person for whatever reasons. It's one of those things that, unfortunately, does happen, and when there are certain circumstances, you start to think about it, and it weighs heavily on you. Been there, done that. But anyhow, other than that, things have been good around here. I'm hoping that today we'll start on something, do some sort of project. I have a project in the bedroom I have to finish, which is basically using the cord wrangler system that we got from Amazon to put the power cord or extension cord that's part of the power cord system, or it's a 25-foot long cord attached to a surge protector. So I gotta lay this stuff down to wrangle the cord to go along the baseboard up over the door and over. I know I've had a few people say, why don't you just drill a hole in the floorboard and pull the cord through the holes in the floorboard so you don't have to worry about that. Well, I would have to drill a pretty good sized hole just to get the plug through. And I don't want to drill any holes in my floorboards because that gives too many unwanted critters the opportunity to climb through the floor, through the under part of the house into the house. No, I've already seen in the bathroom a mouse crawl through a hole that a drain pipe was part of, or not a drain pipe, a water pipe was part of, and skitter across along the edge of the bathroom to get into the utility closet, or not really a utility closet, it's more where the furnace for the house is, the heating system for the house. How do you call that, the environmental system? Because it clicks on every time the air conditioner comes on because it's forced air. Just like the heater is forced air. I don't know. Anyhow, I don't need that in my bedroom. They're contained in their bathroom, and they don't get in anywhere else in the house. So, no. It's one of the other reasons why I want to get a cat, because if I get a cat of my own and can have my room doors open, the cat will have fun basically marking its territory in the bathroom. And most mice, when they smell cat urine or whatever, however the cats mark their territory, spray, whatever, most mice kind of go, no, there's a cat there. Nope, not getting in it. Nope, not going there. But anyhow, excuse my comedic routines. It's just the way my brain is right now. Anyhow, let's go on to something a little bit more positive. My last, I already answered two questions from my last video. Sheila Hall didn't get a comment in until late last night or early this morning after I went to bed. But anyhow, Sheila asks, with a higher DNA from the British, with a higher DNA from Britain, what drew me to the Norse? Yes, I do have a higher count. In fact, I might try one day to take a picture of my Ancestry.com results. And you'll see that Britain and Germany are the two highest ones. Britain is about 23-26% Germanic. The Germanic part of my DNA is 15-16, I think. Everything else kind of ranges below 10%. And there's a good sized mixture of stuff. But to be honest with you, knowing my family as I know my family, and the part of my family that are British, I'm like, you guys are dull and boring. literally dull and boring. I've studied British history and kind of went, yeah, no fun whatsoever. But then I started reading how there was a section of Britain at the time that ran from the northwest diagonally through Britain, starting at like Hadrian's Wall, all the way down to the southwestern, or no, northwest, down to Dover, basically. Hadrian's Wall to what is now known as Dover was called the Danelaws, which was basically an area of Britain controlled by the Norse. So even though there's a larger percent of British, Britain itself, if you've ever studied the history of Britain, it's kind of a mess. During the AD era, during the Roman era, the Roman Empire controlled or took over Britain and basically slaughtered 90% of the British people, the natives of Britain, or as the Romans called it, Britannia. And they tried to get into Scotland, but because the Celts of Scotland were too savage and too uncontrollable, the Roman Empire built what is now known as Hadrian's Wall to keep the Celts at bay. So, for a very large portion of time, the people of Britannia that weren't killed off or whatever by the Roman Empire were basically inducted or made part of the Roman Empire. So they originally spoke Latin. Latin was the original language of the British people. Now, because of things that were happening around Rome at the time, between Germanic tribes and barbarian tribes basically beating down their door and trying to basically return what the Roman Empire did to them by trying to kill off most of the Roman Empire. And when they got to Rome itself, the capital city of the Roman Empire, the Roman emperor of the time went, whoa, I'm sorry for what I did. What can I do compensation-wise? And basically the barbarian people, or the Germanic tribes that nearly wiped out Rome, said, everything in your vaults, basically all your gold, all your silver, all your money, all your valuables. And the Roman emperor went, okay, take whatever you want and be gone. We won't bug you, you won't bug us. So I guess that's probably about the time that the Roman Empire left all the civilians in Britain. So a couple hundred years or so after the Roman Empire left, which was sometime in the early BCs, like 500 BC, or not BC, AD, the Roman Empire left. So Britain had no military. So what happened between the time the Romans left and the time the Norse invaders occurred, 3 different groups invaded Britain. Denmark and two different areas of, there's like 2 other different tribes or groups that were like from France or Germany. One was Danish, one was German, one was French. And they had their own different languages, and they used Latin and their own homeland languages to create a new language, which slowly became the modern day English. Of course, there was also the various bits of language from the Norse people that became part of the new language of Britannia, or Britain. So after the Roman Empire left, 3 different groups invaded parts of England, what we now call England, and established their own territories. Granted, they also had skirmishes on who was going to control the larger parts of the territory. That took about 200 or so years before the first Norse invaders landed on British territory. And for several hundred years, well, maybe not several hundred years, but 100 or 2 years, there was, the Norse people invading and trying to, and taking over bits and pieces, and eventually the person who became the ruler of England after the three countries basically left, and again left no to very little military strength. All they had was a couple of different kings, saying, okay, we're going to agree to split this land into three different sections. And it was basically one big family dividing it amongst themselves. But when the Norsemen came, and the people of Britain, the various kings and leaders of Britain realized that they could not basically end the invasion, they decided to make certain peace treaties. And the capital of the new Norse Empire on British territory was Jurvik, which was just south of Hadrian's Wall. But it was agreed that a strip of land from Hadrian's Wall to the southeastern border of Britannia, or Britain, was under Norse rule. Now, for the most part, the Norse people did not go there to claim a whole swath of land, or literally all the land. They originally came there to be farmers. They just wanted a new area to grow better crops and harvest trees and whatnot to sail back home to their homelands for their people. If it wasn't for the fact that a particular group of Britons at the time decided this was not acceptable, and made false agreements, and this is not only just from watching the TV series The Vikings, but reading actual information from that time period. Yeah, from that point on, if you watch Vikings, the series on the History Channel, you'll get a good idea of what was happening at the time. But it was Ragnar Lothbrok's sons who made it possible to own lands in Britain and have a whole city, a capital city called Jurvik, which Uber Ragnar, or Uber, son of Ragnar, was the head honcho, the king, so to speak, of the Britannian Norsemen. Now, over time, because of peace treaties and various events that happened, Norse influence was a big thing. It helped influence the British language as we know it today, their cities, their military, a whole lot of different things that you can trace from modern day stuff to back during the trying to think, the last known Viking horde or Viking raids ended towards the 1100s, mid to late 1100s. It was in the 1200s that the last heathen group of Vikings or Norsemen were around. So it wasn't until the 1200s that the Vikings actually became more civil. The Norsemen or Vikings became more civilized and became Christians. And well, the Vikings, basically, if it wasn't for the Vikings, we don't know how long it would have taken us to discover the New World, let alone the Mediterranean, Europeans, English people, Saxons, basically, because it was the Vikings who learned how to get from Norway to Istanbul, or Turkey as it's now known, as well as getting from the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. So, brief history right there. That's what kind of drew me to the Vikings and the Norsemen over the Brits. The other question she asked is, excuse me, how long have you been interested in the Norse? I say Norse instead of Vikings. I think she said Nordic, but I'm not sure. That's a good question. I've been interested in Vikings, not knowing exactly what the Vikings were when I first learned about them. Um, I've been interested in them on and off for a good 20 years. No, less than that. I'd say 10 years. I'm going to say at least a decade. It wasn't until about 2 years ago when my mom gifted me for Christmas a Ancestry.com DNA kit. Because she had gotten hers the year before and found out a lot about her DNA. And I went, ooh, that sounds very interesting. You got a lot more information than you originally learned or knew about. I want one. I would like to do mine. And she goes, sure, okay, we'll see. Well, the thing is the DNA kits are about $50 a pop. At least 2 years ago they were, and I think she got a special deal around Christmas time, and she got one for me and Jerry Ann. And when I got mine back, I was like, oh, well, I knew about the British because it's mom's DNA. Mom's DNA is Scots, Irish, British with some German. She did not have any Norwegian or Denmark or any of the Nordic countries. And when I got my results back, and I was like, okay, okay. And then like a couple months later, they did a update because they're always updating their resource information or whatnot. And they send you updates, and I got the update, and I went, ooh, Norwegian, Swiss, or Swedish, not Swiss, Swedish, Sweden, Denmark, Baltics. Okay. You know, I don't remember. I just remember those ones off the top of my head, and I just went, oh, okay. And then they showed you how they trace your ancestry from the old world to the Americas, and it was like West Virginian, German, Minnesota, or not German, Virginia, Kentucky, Missouri, Minnesota, and the latest addition was Oregon. And I went, okay, that's interesting. You know, we had to get over here somehow, and we did spread. My cousin lives all the way in Washington State, so sure, okay. But I think my hardcore interest in the Nordics had to hit me really hardcore within the last year, when I started to really get into the hardcore studies and not just like, oh, okay. Something in me just kind of went, you know what? You know about your mom's side of the family. Dad's side of the family is kind of scattered and hard to pinpoint. And since mom's DNA kit did not show any results from the Nordic territories, but somehow it must be from my dad's side of the family that's how I got that Nordic, Danish, Germanic parts of my DNA. So it's kind of like one of those, okay. That's when I started studying it and went, oh, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, 26% is from, they give you a specific part of Britain that it's from. And I looked it up and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That was originally a Norse village or Norse settlement way back in the early AD period. Now, because of the way history was recorded back in the old days, a lot of the histories of Northwest Europe was not written down because at the time they probably did not have a written history. It was all oral. Yet written history for ancient civilizations like Egypt, Rome, Rome, Greece, the Mediterranean region has been written and recorded since before Christ was born. But anything else, it hasn't been. So a lot of people are like, well, if it's not written, it's not real. Well, no. that's not true because China and Japan, which are considered two of the oldest, I mean, literally older than Egypt civilizations, had written history. But because of, especially Japan, which Japan is considered one of the oldest, older than Egypt type civilizations, I mean, ancient civilizations, um, their history was written, but they were very secretive because they didn't trust anybody that was not from their land. They called us gaijins, and gaijin basically means demon, and that's what we were considered back to them, demons. Um, in fact, I would probably assume that even ancient Egypt would be considered um, a young civilization compared to Japan. That's only what I've read. I don't know if it's true or not. According to archaeologists and various groups that study history and ancient civilizations, say yes, Japan was probably one of the first. Japan and China were one of the first two civilizations established before Egypt. And I would go, but Egypt's got history all the way back to 20, 30, what is it? 2 to 3,000 years before Christ was even born. You know, they go all the way back to like 2000, 3000 BC. And I just kind of went, huh. So how old is China? How old is Japan? Were they around during the dinosaurs? I don't know. But yeah, as for my interest in the Nordic people, I think I started doing some hardcore studying probably about a year ago. I think probably about a year after I got my DNA results, and I started going, I know about the Brits, I know about the Germans, I know their histories, but I didn't know their histories. I did not know the history of Britain as well as I do now. And that's only because I got interested in studying the Nordic people. And I went, so there was a time where Britain was not dull and boring. It was pretty hardcore, badass struggles. I'm not saying that Britain is boring or anything like that, because there's a lot of things in Britain or the UK that's very, very interesting. I mean, there's parts of what they call Old London, which it still stands, and you know, I'm like, wow. I mean, look at some of the structures in Germany. Some of the structures that survived World War One, World War Two in Germany. They've been around. Let's look at one of my favorite castles, Neuschwanstein, the crown jewel of the Black Forest. Sits just minutes to a half hour or so outside of Munich, Germany. It's one of the oldest, most beautiful castles. Disney himself, Walt Disney himself, when he saw Neuschwanstein, went, that has got to be part of my theme park. That has got to be part of the Disney's legacy. He came back to America, and that big castle, that Cinderella castle that everybody talks about in the middle of Disney, is a scaled down model or replica of Neuschwanstein. That's where he got the idea for Cinderella's castle, Neuschwanstein. Sorry, I'm getting like the gooselies and whatnot. Something about Neuschwanstein, it always causes me to have this weird tingling sensation. Some people describe it as memory sensations of knowledge and whatnot, and memories. But look at some of the other castles and whatnot that survived the war. Kokum Castle. That's one of them. One of my favorite castles that I've actually been to in this lifetime. It's a beautiful castle. It sits on a hill overlooking the Mosel River. Untouched by the wars. And I don't mean untouched as in not demolished, but literally stood the test of time. Unfortunately, a lot of the old buildings and a lot of the old structures of parts of France, England, and the coastline of Europe weren't so lucky. They either did not stand the test of time because nature itself took its wear and tear, or because of the war and the bombings and all that stuff, were destroyed. But I look at some of the structures here in America alone that were built during the colonial period, during the period of of the Europeans moving to America and building some of these old buildings. In fact, if you go to New York, there's a section of New York itself, old New York, that have what they call brownstones. Some of those brownstone houses were built turn of the century. Some of them, I think, were built post-Revolutionary War. Maybe a couple of them pre-Revolutionary War. But you got to realize the way that the Europeans built their homes back then, no nails, no metal. It was basically, the roofing was two pieces of wood that went in like this with a wooden pin that would connect the two boards. You know what's nice about that kind of structure? As the house ages, the weather causes the wood to expand and contract. That wooden pin, that wooden peg that kept the two boards together would expand and contract with the wood. Nails, they don't do that. They slowly wiggle their way out and fall out of place, and your roofing is no longer stable. It's one of the reasons why old school buildings, I swear to God, if we were to go back to the old school way of building stuff, the only thing that would probably damage a building like that, nature itself. Tons of snow weighing down on the wood, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes. That's the only thing I can think of that would take out an old school house, old school building. Hopefully that answered your question, Sheila. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get off this video. I didn't want to be in here this long. I got so much stuff to do, and this eye's got a dry patch, and it's starting to hurt. Ow. Anyhow, I just have to go moisturize. That's all. But anyhow, yeah. If you guys enjoyed this little video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put it in the question comment box. I will address them to the best of my ability, or however I feel it needs to be done. If you're new to my channel and want to subscribe because you might have liked some of the things I talked about, or you have some common interests of the things I talked about, just to break it down real quick for those of you who are trying to decide whether you want to join or not, I talk about my general everyday life. I talk about, as you just heard, my interest in the Nordic people, or the Norse, which basically is part of my ancestral DNA. I also talk about things like American Cozy or How to Haggy, which is basically different ways to, a lifestyle, different lifestyles, different ways of doing things. In your home, in your life in general. I also do talk about mythology and theology. In fact, one particular person made a comment on my last video because I was trying to determine what I was going to do after I get done with American Cozy, which I'm hoping I can do some more work in soon, because I've been so focused on other things I haven't read anything oh yeah, I did. I just didn't talk about it today. I talk about the Vikings. I talk about the Norse people. I talk about who they were, how I connect to them. I have a very wide range of interests. So if you're interested in anything, any of those subjects, maybe today's your day to join. Maybe you've already joined and want to chime in on something. That's fine and dandy. But if you have not joined and you want to, I keep on rattling that off, just hit the subscribe button and then a little bell pop up and you can click on that bell and YouTube will put in a new video. Until next time, you guys have a good day. Bye.